All right, so strap in, because this deep dive, well, it's a bit different. We're heading to Neo-Tokyo, yeah, but not just for the cool cyberpunk stuff. We're talking Akira.
A true classic.
Total classic.
Yeah.
But you brought us something deeper than just, like, awesome animation and action scenes. We're going deep on power, what happens when it goes too far, how it messes with people, messes with societies, the whole deal.
And that's what's so amazing about Akira. It tackles these big philosophical questions, right? But it never stops being a total thrill ride. You're on the edge of your seat, but then you're also like, whoa, what does it all mean?
Right.
Long after it's over.
That's the thing, it stays with you.
Yeah.
And those visuals, I mean, come on, that city, Neo-Tokyo, it's practically alive.
Yeah.
And not in a happy way, right? It's this decaying, kind of intense place.
It really is. Like, visually, Neo-Tokyo is a pressure cooker about to explode, which, reflects all the chaos and anxieties brewing inside the characters, too. It's not just a backdrop. It's part of their psychological landscape.
Which brings us to the core of it. Tetsuo and Kaneda. Best friends, but man, the story takes them to such different places. All because of this question of power, right? What it does to a person from the inside out.
And it's not just physical power, like, oh, I can blow stuff up now. Akira dives into the psychology of power, how it warps your thinking, your desires, even your sense of self. And that's where someone like Nietzsche comes in.
Okay, Nietzsche. Love it, big thinker, huge ideas. But how does this guy who is writing about Supermen connect to some kid in Neo-Tokyo who suddenly can move things with his mind?
It's all about what happens when we start believing we're beyond limits, right? That the rules everyone else follows, they don't apply to us anymore. Nietzsche's Übermensch wasn't about literal superpowers, but that internal drive to be more than human. And Tetsu, he gets a taste of that, but for real, in this incredibly dangerous way. And that can be intoxicating, terrifying, even realizing you might not be bound by the same limitations as everyone else.
And man, does the film ever drive that home. But there's another layer here, right? This whole thing of trying to find your place, your purpose, in a world that feels like it's coming apart at the seams. How do you find meaning when everything feels so uncertain, so unstable? And I feel like that's where Sartre comes in.
Exactly. Sartre was all about this idea that we create our own meaning, especially in a world that doesn't come with instructions. And look at Kaneda. He's trying to do that, trying to find his footing amidst the literal and metaphorical ruins of Neo-Tokyo. Kind of like how today we're all navigating these overwhelming choices about careers, about our place in the world, and nothing feels definitively right. It's that same struggle.
Oh, no kidding. Like, okay, all these options, but what am I supposed to do with it all? That pressure is everywhere these days. Gaeta's search for meaning, it's incredibly relatable, even if most of us aren't facing down psychic explosions. But we're talking about some powerful forces here, an internal and external, right? And what's a deep dive into psychology without a little Freud? Let's see, ego, superego. On the notes here, were you about to get Freudian?
Don't worry, we're not going full therapy session on you or anything. But Freud's ideas, especially about the id, ego, and superego, they give us some really useful tools for understanding those internal battles happening in Akira. It's like, what's going on inside these characters that makes them act the way they do?
Okay, so, refresher, of course, what are those again? It's been a while since Psych 101 for me.
All right, so picture this. The id, that's your pure instinctual self, all about pleasure, instant gratification, no filter, like the little devil on your shoulder. Right, do it. Go for it.
I know that voice.
Right. Then you've got the superego, total opposite. Voice of conscience, all about rules, expectations, what you should do. That's the angel on your other shoulder saying, maybe not.
Think about the consequences.
Exactly. And stuck in the middle, trying to keep those two from driving you nuts, is the ego.
So the ego's the one trying to, like, wrangle those impulses and actually make decisions.
Exactly. Trying to find that balance. Now look at poor Tetsu. Suddenly, bam. He's got these crazy powers, and it's like his E takes the wheel and floors it.
Oh yeah, he does not handle it well.
No, he does not. He's driven by this pure, unchecked desire, can't control the forces raging inside him. It's like a cautionary tale of what happens when the id wins.
He almost becomes like a slave to it, to that power.
Totally. He's consumed by it. Kaneda, though, he's more about the ego's struggle. He sees where Tetsuo's headed, that self-destructive path, and he's desperately trying to pull him back, trying to find some kind of balance, some middle ground.
Man, that makes those big fight scenes between them even more intense. It's not just about cool powers anymore. It's like this psychological battle playing out.
Exactly. And the film takes it even deeper.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about Jung's concept of the shadow self.
Okay, shadow self. That sounds kind of ominous. Like, are we about to summon something here? What did Jung mean by that?
It's not as scary as it sounds, though Akira definitely makes it pretty vivid. Basically, the shadow, it's the hidden part of us, right?
Hmm.
All the emotions, impulses that we decide are unacceptable, the stuff we try to keep hidden from ourselves and everyone else.
So we've all got this, like, shadowy twin lurking inside us.
Yeah.
Comforting.
Well, think about it. What if Tetsuo's powers aren't just like random psychic abilities? What if they're a manifestation of his shadow self breaking free, all that hidden stuff exploding out with enough power to wreck a city?
Okay, now that's an image, the parts of yourself you're trying to keep hidden, suddenly erupting with the power to level buildings. Yikes.
Right. And isn't there a little bit of that fear in all of us? The fear of losing control, of those darker impulses taking over? Akira takes that very human fear and makes it terrifyingly real.
Which is probably why it hits so hard, even decades later. It's tapping into something we all deal with, that fear of the darkness inside us. Okay, there's one more layer we got to talk about, right? Symbolism. And you can't talk Akira without mentioning that motorcycle. Iconic.
Oh, yeah. Kaneda's bike. It's way more than just a cool ride. It represents freedom, individuality, rebellion, all the things Neo Tokyo is trying to crush.
But then it gets wrecked. What's the takeaway there? It feels like something's lost.
It's a big moment. On one level, yeah, it's a loss of innocence, the destruction of youthful ideals when faced with all this chaos. But it goes deeper, I think. That wrecked motorcycle. It could also mean Kaneda has to find a new path to freedom, a new way to be himself as he's facing these massive forces that want to control him, control everyone.
There's a resilience there, like, okay, that way's blocked, but I'll find another route. What about the ruined Olympic Stadium? It's there throughout the film, this looming reminder of dot something.
Ah, that's another powerful symbol. That unfinished stadium. It represents the danger of unchecked ambition, how even our biggest dreams can become these crumbling ruins. A reminder that progress without a strong foundation, without thinking about the consequences, well, it can lead to disaster.
And that's a little unnerving, right? Connecting it to today. I mean, we're living as this time of crazy technological advancements, AI, genetic engineering. It's like we're building bigger and bigger stadiums without checking if the blueprints even make sense.
It's Akira's question to us, isn't it? Are we making the same mistakes? So focused on what we can do that we don't stop to ask if we should. And all that stunning light in the film, the explosions, Tetsuo's powers, it's not just visual flair, is it?
It's impossible to miss. What's the significance there?
Light in Akira is doing a lot of work. It's energy, it's destructive potential, but it also represents knowledge. Think about it. The more powerful Tetsuo gets, the more he's consumed by this blinding, chaotic light. Beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
So light isn't always a good thing here. It's not about, like, enlightenment in a purely positive sense.
Exactly, it's duality. Light and darkness, creation and destruction, Akira embraces that complexity.
Which is what makes it so compelling. It's not simple, it's not black and white. It's about the struggles within us, what we do when we're faced with that much power. And the film itself was powerful, right?
Right.
In terms of its influence. It didn't just exist on its own, it had a huge impact. Yeah, Akira's influence, it's everywhere. I mean, you see it in movies like The Matrix, obviously, but also video games, comic books, even music videos. It's wild.
It really is. Akira wasn't just a successful film, it was a whole cultural event.
Yeah.
It showed everyone that animation could handle these big ideas, these really complex stories, and it opened the door for a ton of other artists.
Okay, so we've got this visually stunning film, dives into philosophy, psychology,
Yeah.
warns us about unchecked power. Plus, it's got this legacy, influenced so many other works. But what really gets me, and I think you hit on this earlier, is how relevant Akira feels right now.
Yeah.
Like, scarily relevant. Like, it's sending us a message, and we might not be paying attention.
It's that blurry line between science fiction and the real world. Akira came out in the 80s, but it's almost creepy how it nails technology and the power it gives us.
It's true. It's like those what-if scenarios the film shows. They're not so far-fetched anymore. AI, genetic engineering, the sheer amount of information coming at us every single day, it's overwhelming.
And that's why Akira's warning about unchecked power, it hits even harder today. Because it's not about some far-off dystopian future, it's about the choices we're making right now. How are we handling these advances? Are we being responsible, ethical, or are we so excited about the possibilities that we don't want to see the potential downsides?
It makes you think about big tech companies, social media, how algorithms can practically control how we think, what we do. That's a kind of power, right?
Yeah.
And like any power, it can be used for good or for, well, not so good.
Exactly. Akira forces us to confront these uncomfortable things about ourselves, about human nature. It's a reminder that it doesn't matter how advanced we get, we're still driven by the same desires, the same fears, capable of amazing things and terrible things.
So Is the film pessimistic then? Is it all doom and gloom? Or is there hope in there somewhere?
I see it as a cautionary tale, but not a hopeless one. The film doesn't give easy answers, and it definitely doesn't shy away from how destructive unchecked power can be. But it also shows us how important human connection is, empathy, having the guts to fight for something better, even when everything's falling apart.
It's like Kaneda, right?
Yeah.
He could have just given up and said, this is too much, the world gone crazy.
Oh,
But he keeps fighting, keeps looking for a way through. Maybe that's Akira's real message.
yeah.
We always have a choice in how we use the power we have, how we respond to the challenges that come our way.
I like that. And that's what makes it such a powerful, lasting work of art. It's exciting, it makes you think, and it sticks with you long after you've seen it. It makes us ask the big questions about ourselves, about the world we're creating.
So if you haven't experienced Akira, well, there's your homework. It's not just an anime. It's a visually stunning, philosophical trip into what it means to be human when the world's on the edge of change. And if you've already seen it, maybe time for another watch. Because like we've been talking about, there's always something new to discover, something to make you question your assumptions, something that stays with you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and keep diving deep.